Purdue gets a bounce back 92-49 win over UIndy at Mackey. And the post-game show starts right now.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your host. I am Nick Arvin, and we're bringing you a fun Thursday episode of Locked On Boilermakers because at the time I'm filming this, UIndy versus Purdue just ended. We got a fun post-game show because Purdue, they bounced back today in a big way, getting a 92-49 victory in the exhibition matchup at home against UIndy. We'll talk all about it today. Today's episode is brought to you guys by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 and bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. So, of course, let's go ahead and jump right into this. And before we get into this, I want to preface this post-game episode by saying, yes, Purdue, they were good, not great. There's still a lot for Purdue to work on before the regular season starts up, and especially before traveling to Tuscaloosa in a couple weeks. That's number one. And yes, Purdue, they get a big win. They win by 43 points on the night. However, it was against a D2 opponent. I understand that UIndy is not a high-quality opponent, and I understand that this was an exhibition. However, coming after Purdue going into Rupp Arena this past weekend and just not showing a whole lot of energy, being at home at Mackey and showing the energy we didn't see last weekend and really getting out fast, getting to that victory, it was good to see. And there were a lot of bright spots for Purdue, particularly two guys in Jacobsen and Gicarri Harris, who we'll talk about in the second segment. But overall, it was just a much better day for almost everyone on that Purdue roster. They played much better basketball. When you talk about fast break points, they had 17 of those. Second chance points, 20 of those. Bench points, this is a big number, 54. I think it was only like 16 bench points against Kentucky. Obviously, the bench saw a lot more action in this matchup because, I mean, it was a little bit less competitive in terms of Purdue getting an early lead. So the bench, they did play more. But in terms of, I mean, what we talked about, where that bench unit is going to be big for Purdue, really show that depth. It showed today against UIndy. Omer Meyer, someone that I really circled to look at before this game started in terms of he's the primary ball handler for that bench unit. I thought that he played much better basketball today. He shot 2 for 5, 1 for 4 from three-pointer. So still some efficiency he could work on from three, but of course, still an exhibition. But he did have 8 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. Omer Meyer played much better basketball in this one, and it was able to really get that bench unit going. We'll talk about some other guys. Liam Murphy was someone who kind of surprised me. He played 10 minutes, 2 for 3 from the field, 5 points. Defensively, he can definitely improve, but I was impressed with the size of Liam Murphy. We saw him a lot in the second half, and he really looked like he could be a potential third-string center to sub in when your guys, Jacobsen or Clough, get into foul trouble. And that was something I guess we can nitpick on a little bit. Purdue, they played with a great amount of intensity against UIndy. That's something I noticed from start to finish. On the defensive side of the ball, they were a lot better than they were against Kentucky. Obviously, the opponent, that goes into play, but just overall, the mindset that Purdue had, it was definitely there on the defensive side of the ball. But your centers get into early foul trouble. Oscar Clough, he gets 3 fouls early, and then towards the end of the game, both of those guys have 4 fouls, which makes you have to put in a guy like Liam Murphy at the center spot. But I was really impressed with his size. I was impressed with his ability to shoot the ball. I'm not sure how much we're going to see of Murphy this year, but really the first opportunity I got to see him in game action like this, and I was fairly impressed with Liam Murphy. I'm just trying to go down the stat sheet, talk about all these different guys because, I mean, it really was a group effort. Purdue's largest lead in this one was 43 points. They had 29 points off turnovers, 34 points in the paint in this game. And they got out to an early lead, 18-point halftime lead. I think that's going to be something that's fairly big for Purdue this year, especially at home in Mackey. Just being able to get out to early leads, maintain that intensity early, and then pile it on to the second half. Because I think Purdue, they're going to be a great second half adjustment team. I think that's somewhere where Matt Painter is really underrated in terms of getting his team ready, making the proper adjustments that you see in the first half. And going into the second half, we saw that today against UIndy because they were up by 18, but they just continued to push. They won the second half by 25 points. And of course, that final score tonight was 49-92, where Purdue, they just had a really, really good effort. That's all I can say about it. There are still things to work out in terms of turning the ball over. Turnovers were a bit of an issue tonight. They did turn the ball over 13 times. So certainly not the perfect effort, but when you talk about rebounding, playing who's in front of you at home, it was a great performance by the Boilermakers. It was a great performance, just putting your head down, not getting too caught up in the moment, not getting too caught up in it being an exhibition, and really performing to the best of your ability. I thought that Fletcher Lawyer had a much better game today. He didn't shoot the ball too well against Kentucky today. He was 4 for 6, 3 for 4 from 3. I'd like to see him shoot the ball even more if he's able to shoot as efficiently as he can. You know, at Mackey, Fletcher Lawyer is a different type of shooter, shooting over 50%. But like I said, 16 points. He was Purdue's second leading scorer on the day. He was 5 for 5 from the free throw line. He had an assist, a rebound. Fletcher Lawyer was much better shooting the three in this one. And overall, I felt like Purdue was much better shooting the three ball. They shot the ball 17% last weekend. Today, they shot the ball 50% from the field. They shot even higher than 50%, or they shot 50% from three-point range. They shot a little bit better than 50% from the field. So overall, when you look at it, you look at the stats, just a much better game efficiently for Purdue, a much better intensity for Purdue, and they really got it done. The one last person that I want to talk about before we talk about Gicarri Harris and Daniel Jacobsen, who were my players of the game in this one, I want to talk about TKR because I think that's a guy that's going to be very interesting this year for Purdue. He ended off the game with 10 points in 22 minutes played. He shot 4 for 10 from field goal range, 2 for 2 from the free throw line. TKR, 2 games in a row now, has really struggled early, and it's not due to a bad shot selection. He's been taking the same shots that he took last year when he averaged 20 points, but just early on, he's been struggling, and I don't really understand why, because like I said, they're good looks. He has good opportunities. It's just like he gets a little bit too far in his head sometimes, and that creates, these near misses, and when that happens, it really stops momentum for Purdue. So going into that regular season, TKR really needs to get hot early because he's proven that he can be resilient, and he definitely can, getting his shot offensively in the second half. But you need TKR in the first half. You need your best big man to really kind of assert himself early and show that this is the pace we're going to play with. I'm going to make it happen down low all night long. And so far going into this year, TKR, he really hasn't done that early on in games. And it's something where I'm not overly concerned about it yet, just because I know who TKR is. He's proven at Purdue that he has the potential to face adversity. He's done it all throughout his career. And like I said, he was a 20-point scorer last year. But it's interesting that you move him from the center spot to the power forward position, something that I thought would really be beneficial to him on the offensive side of the ball, not having to guard on the defensive side of the ball as hard against some of those bigger centers. It gives you more opportunity, more energy on the offensive side of the ball to really finish inside. And so I thought TKR early on in these exhibitions, we'd see a new version of him, someone that has really sparked up, evolved as a scorer. But so far, TK, he's just been struggling. Like I said, maybe in his own head a little bit, but in the first half, those looks that he usually makes at a 70% clip, they just aren't falling. And you hate to see it because a guy like that, so consistent traditionally offensively, just to see him struggle like that, it's tough to see. But I'm not worried about TK yet. Like I said, still had 10 points on the game. He's going to struggle a little bit. He's going to struggle in the first half, but as long as he shows that bounce back effort like we saw like we saw tonight and when he was the leading scorer against Kentucky, I feel like that's a good baseline where you get him going into the regular season, and that's going to be the biggest thing. Yes, I mean, he struggled, but it is an exhibition game. He showed that resiliency. As long as TK can get it going into these regular season games that start up next week, I'm not worried about him. I think that he will be just fine, and that efficiency will come as the season continues to progress and as he gets more reps under his belt, because it is a new position for him. He still has a lot of the same characteristics offensively, but some of the creating his own looks, some of the getting it down on the wing and then having to really just find a basket, that's a little bit new. Yes, we've seen who he has as a scorer, but he's in a new role this year. So I think once he gets that adjustment period taken care of, I think that we will have nothing to worry about TK. But let's talk about some two guys that we definitely don't have anything to worry about, because 2 exhibitions in, they have absolutely impressed. That's Daniel Jacobsen and Gicarri Harris. We're talking about those guys here next. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets from everything from who will score the next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps the game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com and sign up to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So we talked about it in our last segment. We previewed it a little bit, and I didn't want to hit on these guys because I felt like they absolutely deserved a segment of their own. And I'm talking about Daniel Jacobsen. I'm talking about Gicarri Harris, because after tonight, I don't feel like there's any way of denying that those two guys deserve starting spots. Oscar Clough, he got into foul trouble early. So we saw Daniel Jacobsen, and I haven't necessarily been impressed with Oscar Clough a lot this year. He was a guy that was brought in the transfer portal and I thought was really going to change the dynamic of this team. He only had 1 point against Kentucky and 5 rebounds, no offensive rebounds. Tonight, he only shot the ball 2 times. He made 1 basket. He had 2 points, 5 rebounds. He did have 3 offensive rebounds, so that's an improvement, but those did come in the second half, and they were like 3 in a span of 10 seconds or whatever. So for Oscar Clough, he needs to improve, but whenever he's not playing at his best, it provides opportunities for Daniel Jacobsen, your guy who was hurt last year, 7'4". Jacobsen, we didn't really know what to expect out of him this year. We knew that those guys were going to rotate. We didn't know how many minutes he would really play. He played more than Oscar Clough did against UIndy, and I really feel like it was because of how well he was playing, because he played lights out. He was 5 for 5 from the field, had 10 points, an offensive rebound. He out-rebounded Oscar Clough. He had 7 rebounds, or 8 rebounds, rather. 7 defensive, 1 offensive rebound. So he had 4 personal fouls, which we talked about, 3 turnovers, something that's going to have to be worked out, but 2 blocks. That is where Daniel Jacobsen is extremely valuable. When you're getting 2 blocks, you're out-rebounding Oscar Clough, and you're shooting 100% from the field with 10 points. That's too much value to not be starting. And we saw when Daniel Jacobsen was on the floor, when he was on the floor with Fletcher Loyer, with Braden Smith, with the rest of the starters, they were significantly better, in my opinion. I thought that the best lineup was Braden Smith, Fletcher Loyer, Gicarri Harris, TKR, and Daniel Jacobsen. That felt like the less clunky lineup. With Oscar Clough, it just feels kind of slow. With Daniel Jacobsen, he's 7'4", but it doesn't feel as slow because he has so much length. He can stretch the floor. He's a better shooter than Oscar Clough. So on the offensive side of the ball, he's better than Oscar Clough. There's no doubt about that. And when you have better production on the offensive side of the ball, well, it goes to the defensive side. That's what Purdue really needs. And so I felt like that was really what it was going to come down to. The better defender out of these two was going to be the starter. And so far, Daniel Jacobsen not only has been the better offensive player, but significantly by a wide margin has been better defensively. As a shot blocker, he's been a better rebounder. He's done everything better than Oscar Clough. So I don't understand why Daniel Jacobsen doesn't have a starting spot. And I'm not doubting Coach Matt Painter. I'm not doubting Oscar Clough because it is still very early. But what I am saying is that Daniel Jacobsen provides you far too much value to not be utilizing him at the max possible way, because he showed it in this game that Daniel Jacobsen is something special. When you have a big man that's 7'4", that can block the ball, that can shoot the ball, that can rebound the ball, that can really do everything and produce at a really, really high level, it's hard to say that this guy's not going to play. And I think that Daniel Jacobsen really earned his time tonight. Whether he starts against Evansville, I think he absolutely should. We'll have to see, but he'll absolutely get minutes. And I think that we're kind of at the beginning of what Daniel Jacobsen can be, because the evolution of this guy, if he can just stay healthy, that's the thing about those really long big men. You got to hope that they stay healthy, because that is a concern. Daniel Jacobsen, he was out last year, but if we saw anything tonight, this is a special player. And I can't wait to see more Daniel Jacobsen. But he wasn't the only guy who really impressed me tonight. Someone else who impressed me, that has consistently impressed me, I've been this guy's biggest supporter, it's Gicarri Harris, because I've said that Gicarri Harris deserves this starting spot since the offseason because of his size. His size defensively is going to be so beneficial for what Purdue wants alongside Fletcher Loyer this year. You have the opportunity to plug him in at the shooting guard or small forward position and really have a guy that can lock down other teams' best wings. That's what Gicarri Harris gives you, and I felt like that was too beneficial to not have on the court with your starting lineup alongside your three seniors, right? But his evolution as an offensive, talent, just pure talent offensively, his ability to develop that three-point shot that he's developed this offseason while still maintaining the size, still maintaining the speed and that composure. Gicarri Harris is undeniable, and he was undeniable in this game. Every single game, it's felt like Gicarri Harris has been their best player. Going back to intra-squads, going to Kentucky, going to this game, he's been the most impressive player for Purdue in every single game so far this year. He was the same way tonight. 20 points, 7 for 10. He was 4 for 5 from 3. And when you talk about early season last year, he picked it up. But early season, he struggled shooting the 3. And now that's probably one of his best areas in terms of being a 3-and-D guy. I just don't see how you can't start Gicarri Harris. We said the same thing about Daniel Jacobsen, but I mean, this guy is just so good. And CJ Cox, he was good as well on 20 minutes tonight. 2 for 3 from 3, 7 points, but 20 points from Gicarri Harris. You can't look past that. I feel like you can still definitely use CJ Cox. He can be that sixth starter, but not starting Gicarri Harris, I feel like it hurts you because he's so good. He's proven that he is playing the best basketball out of anyone early in this season so far. Like I said, 7 for 10 from the field, 5 from 3. He had 4 rebounds in this one. I can't speak highly enough of Gicarri Harris. And like I said, you see the size, you see the speed. It's just so interesting the way that Gicarri Harris has developed. And we talked about Daniel Jacobsen, him being hurt last year, trying to really take a jump this year. Gicarri Harris, he wasn't hurt last year. He played last year. But I think that when we're talking about sophomore leaps in college basketball, that's a phrase that gets tossed out a lot. And I think that someone that envisions that better than anyone else in the country is Gicarri Harris, because everything that he struggled with last year, everything that he could do better this offseason to make him a more attractive player, to get more minutes in terms of under Matt Painter this year, he's done. He's fixed everything last year that you could point at and say Gicarri Harris struggles at. He no longer struggles at. He's one of the best three-point shooters on this team now. After that was what people pointed at last year and said that's why he shouldn't get minutes. So now there's no reason why Gicarri Harris shouldn't be getting minutes. He does get minutes. Matt Painter, he understands the value that Gicarri Harris has. But I think that when you see Braden Smith, Daniel Jacobsen, Gicarri Harris, Fletcher Lawyer, and TKR, that's the lineup that gives you the most fluidity. That's the lineup that not just on the offensive side of the ball, but the defensive side of the ball as well, gives you the best production in terms of the intensity, the speed, the rebounding. That's the lineup you got to put out. I was incredibly thrilled with the way that Daniel Jacobsen and Gicarri Harris played in this one. I think those guys are going to be special. I think we have 2 sophomores for Purdue right now that are going to produce this year for the Boilermakers, for the number 1 ranked Boilermakers, and then go on next year and be starters for this team and really push forward for this program. I'm really high on these guys, and I think that they really performed in this one. But in our last segment today, I want to talk about how Purdue can take what they learned against UIndy today and bring it in, because the regular season starts next Tuesday against Evansville. We'll talk about how Purdue can use what they learned tonight and take it on in just 5 days, because the regular season is starting up fast. We'll talk about that one here next. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings that same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Nappa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. So, going into Evansville, the regular season starts up for the Boilermakers next Tuesday, just 5 days away. And at Mackey, I thought that we had a good kind of read on the environment in Mackey. Talk about that environment, 16,000 people in Mackey tonight for an exhibition game. There will be more against Evansville. But I thought we had a good read of how Mackey was going to operate. Obviously, as intense as ever, that environment, exciting. And we're going to see that against Evansville as that regular season starts up. But what do they offer? Well, the Evansville Aces are a very lengthy team. They've got size in the Missouri Valley Conference. That's one of the best mid-major conferences in all of basketball. Evansville is a team towards the center this year, trying to get it figured out. And when you talk about that length, I think what Purdue can take the most from tonight is how to balance that length, how to balance speed and rebounding. You saw that Daniel Jacobsen, he was a guy, his ability to get down the floor, shoot the ball, stretch the floor, and if he can really develop as a rebounder, well, Daniel Jacobsen is a guy that is going to be hard to keep off of the court, right? So I think that he's going to be incredibly beneficial for Purdue against Evansville. But I think that I think that Oscar Clough needs to step up against Evansville. I think that you need to provide the rotation that Purdue is looking for going into the regular season, because yes, Jacobsen, he can be that guy and he can really prove that he deserves to be the starter. But if you only have one big that's able to produce, you're not going to find a lot of success. Oscar Clough, yeah, he's underperformed so far. And I mean, it's not too late for him, though, even if his role isn't as a starter on this team. Say maybe it is. I don't know yet, but he still has a role no matter what. And you need that guy to produce, whether it's off the bench, whether it's starting. You need Oscar Clough to produce if this team's going to reach the ceiling where it is, because so far he's looked slow. He hasn't looked like he's really all that great offensively. He hasn't out-rebounded Daniel Jacobsen yet. So Oscar Clough, he needs to prove that he deserves to get minutes on the floor against a lengthy team like Evansville. And with that, staying out of foul trouble. You can't afford for your bigs to get in foul trouble against a team with a lot of length in their front court. Absolutely cannot do it. So for Purdue, you can't get in foul trouble. Keep your bigs on the floor no matter what. Something else I want to see is Braden Smith be a little bit more aggressive against Evansville. Obviously, I mean, it was an exhibition. The past two have been exhibitions, but I don't think Braden Smith is as aggressive as I expect him to be throughout the regular season. Against UIndy, he was 1 for 4 from the field. Only shot the ball 4 times. Only shot it once from 3. Made that shot. Had 3 points, 3 rebounds. Braden Smith, he played 22 minutes, but he just wasn't aggressive. He was trying to help out his teammates, pass the ball. I want an ultra aggressive Braden Smith as this regular season starts up because he's the guy for this team. You have all the supporting cast you could ever hope for. You have all the talent in the world, but Braden Smith is the National Player of the Year favorite for a reason. And I'm not going to blame him for not being ultra aggressive in these exhibition matches, but I want to see you get to your spots. I want to see you get shots up in the regular season. I know that it's Evansville, but Evansville, it's a tough team. They're in a tough conference. This is a D1 opponent. This is going to be a bigger test than what we saw today against UIndy. So if you're Braden Smith, you need to be more aggressive. And then finally, I want Purdue to continue to shoot the ball at an elite level. That's going to be where Purdue lives and dies this year, is from that three-point line. Against Kentucky, they struggled shooting the ball only 17%. And tonight, they really improved. I think at Mackey, Purdue is going to be incredibly hard to beat because they're going to shoot the ball much better at Mackey than they're going to shoot the ball on the road. And whether that brings Purdue troubles going into the future of traveling and still shooting the ball good on the road, I think that's a topic for another day. I think that that's something that Purdue definitely needs to work on. But I think in terms of having that advantage at Mackey, you got to keep that. You got to continue that momentum, continue that intensity. And when you're at Mackey, shoot the ball lights out like you did today. It's going to come down to all your guys. CJ Cox had a 2 for 3. Fletcher Lawyer was 3 for 4. Braden Smith, 1 for 1. Gicarri Harris, 4 for 5. Antoine West, I don't know how much we'll see, but after he struggled a little bit, he was 2 for 6. Plenty of three-point shooters on this team. That's why you bring in all these guys. But you have to continue to shoot the three ball at an elite level. We're still very early in the season, so it's hard to judge where this team's at. But so far, a little bit inconsistent. And that inconsistency needs to go away if Purdue wants to find a high level of success. Because like I said, Purdue is going to win and lose games by that three-point line. They need to shoot the three ball at a consistent, efficient level this year if they're going to want to find success. But they have all the guys, and they certainly showed it tonight in a big win, 92-49 over UIndy in the last exhibition, the opener at Mackey. So now all eyes are on the regular season. Evansville is on Tuesday. I can't hardly wait. We'll be covering episode tomorrow here on Locked On Boilermakers. We'll end off this week, and then we'll talk Evansville to start off next week. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in on this Thursday morning, the UIndy post-game show. As always, thank you guys for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. For your second listen, consider checking out Locked On Big Ten. Craig Sheeman, he breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships and every game in between. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you guys. And as always, bowler up, hammer down.